Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. An unbelievable night on America's college campuses as police are called to break up ugly clashes and eject protesters who have disrupted universities for far too long. Yes, leave it to the boys in blue. They should have been brought in long ago. Overnight at UCLA, bloody fighting broke out between pro and anti-Israel demonstrators. This following days of skirmishes after campus police had reportedly been told to stand down, even as Jewish students were denied entry to the campus for classes they have paid for. Here's just a sample of what unfolded last night via the LA Times.
You're gonna block Jewish kids? Yeah, let's see it. We're fighting back, bitch. Take that, you terrorists! Look at your ugly ass faces!
Okay, so the pro-Israel people were left to tear down the encampments and get onto the campus by themselves since the cops had been given a stand down order. You could see the anger. That's what happens when you give over your campus to a bunch of people calling for the Jews to die. People get upset. A local ABC reporter could not believe his eyes, noting there was no law enforcement to be found there.
It is something I have never covered without any sign of enforcement, law enforcement, security whatsoever. This has gone now on for over an hour and a half, and it is absolutely appalling, in my estimation, that we have not seen any response. I've just never seen it.
Look, the campus, it was the school, reportedly, that gave the stand down order. The school did not want the cops' help, all right? And it wasn't until the campus requested help from the LAPD, who arrived to cheers from the pro-Israel supporters, that order was restored. Meantime, over on the East Coast, in New York City, Colombia administrators, this is what it takes, I guess, finally had enough. You've got to go commandeer a building, have food supplies being shoved up to the windows. The kids are crapping in buckets because they know if they leave, they won't be allowed back on. This is, really heartfelt. These are lovely people. After months of coddling these brats, Colombia's president, she's done, by the way, wrote to the NYPD and said all of this chaos poses a, quote, clear and present danger, begging police to show up. And show up they did. Stand by. We're going to show you some video. The NYPD here using a large vehicle with a ramp to send officers through a second floor window where they rounded up the protesters and found an absolute mess inside Hamilton Hall, which is the building that these students commandeered. Windows were shattered, barricades had been built, overturned furniture. It's like a hostage situation. Very insurrection-y, but not everyone is happy that the NYPD took action. Far-left politicians like AOC, is she really a politician or is she just a camera whore? I mean, that's really what she is. She's like, never seen a camera she doesn't like. She's just posing as a politician so she can get attention. She warned this is a nightmare in the making, saying, if any kid, and I quote, kid is hurt, this will fall on the mayor and the university president and other presidents across the country who call in the police to help. And yet there were reportedly no injuries to those adults. Absolutely none, because the cops were respectful, but did their job like professionals. In all, nearly 100 people were arrested. They'll be facing charges, and it remains to be seen if DA Alvin Bragg will actually prosecute any of these brats. Bragg on the brats, I wouldn't put money on it. I wouldn't put money on it. I mean, it's not like, as Andy McCarthy said, they had like a falsification of business record. That would get his attention, or would it? As they were led away in police buses, their supporters cheered, as captured by CBS New York. And there are other glimmers of hope that sanity may prevail on some college campuses, places like UNC Chapel Hill. Yesterday, it started to look a lot like Colombia. This is unbelievable. This is the South now. What's happening? As anti-Israel protesters briefly replaced the American flag with the Palestinian one. You know what you can do with your Palestinian flag? And of course, chanted the usual lines. But school leaders and police and fellow students weren't having it. They marched onto the lawn, and even while getting water thrown at them, they raised the American flag back to its rightful place. Chants of USA, USA broke out along with this via student Guillermo Estrada.
We're so gallantly and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, they proved through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Right on, boys. That is how it's done. Not for nothing, but all of the boys hoisting the stars and stripes back up to their rightful place. Attractive, young, strapping men, appropriately dressed, good haircuts, lovers of America. I'm telling you, following up my theory yesterday, it's no accident. The good-looking guys are living their lives. They love America, and America loves them right back. After this, interim UNC Chancellor Lee Roberts had an equally good message for everyone involved.
This university doesn't belong to a small group of protesters. It belongs to every citizen of North Carolina. Everybody in North Carolina. Everybody who goes to school here, everybody who lives and works here. The flag represents all of us. To take down that flag and put up another flag, no matter what other flag it is, that's antithetical to who we are, what this university stands for, what we have done for 229 years.
Right on, sir. Well done. That's how it's done, by the way. Joining me now, Batya Ungar-Sargon, opinion editor at Newsweek and author of the new book, Second Class. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 330 academic programs as of September, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Batya, welcome back. How about this Lee Roberts at UNC Chapel Hill and the boys hoisting the stars and stripes back up to their rightful place?
Thank you so much for having me, Megan. It's so great to be here with you. I keep chuckling when you bring up this point about how good looking they are, but I think it's a really important point because, this gets back to one of the central mysteries, which is, anybody looking at the footage before and after October 7th, right? The footage of these sort of young, very beautiful people in their early 20s who had arrived at this music festival to dance and to chant for peace and to sing and make music, right? They looked so beautiful and angelic. And then, of course, the scenes of after of their mutilated bodies, what had been done to them, the broken body of Shani Luke under, the foot of this animal, this Hamas animal, as he drove her through the streets of Gaza, and there were thousands of people cheering and chanting after that. And I bring this up, Megyn, because when that first happened, I remember thinking to myself, surely the left is going to see themselves reflected in these beautiful, young, music-loving, dancing young people who only want peace, right? And of course, we know now that didn't happen. We know that they sided with Hamas over the women that they had raped. They sided with Hamas over these young 260 murdered, like beautiful, beautiful people. And I don't think it's an accident that we're seeing something similar happening here as well, which is the left has turned on the values of beauty and music and love and peace. And instead, they really embrace this sort of ugly adulation of the oppressed. Whatever somebody who they consider to be oppressed does is virtuous. And so they love war and violence. They stand up for and defend intifada. It's so interesting who the left today is.
Yeah, absolutely right. And yet we're starting to remember who we are, center right and right alike. And there are some center lefties, normal liberals, who are repelled by this stuff, repulsed, and who are coming over too. There was a report that when going, this is per the Charlotte Observer, when going onto the UNC Chapel Hill campus to rectify this flag situation, that there was, police were preparing to march onto the quad, and one officer asked if the others remembered which team they were on. UNC Chapel Hill Interim Chancellor Lee Roberts offered this response: USA. USA, that's the team we're on. Exactly right. And it's something these protesters out there pushing for Muslim rule, Sharia law, which is where this is going to go if they get their way. It never will in America, are forgetting to remember. They don't understand that what led to this Hamas attack was evil. It was evil in the hearts of a group that wants to annihilate another people. It was not some just cause as they want us to believe. And what they should be worried more about is the changes that these folks want to bring to America.
I'm so glad that you put it that way. I've been saying from the beginning, these protests look like they're about Israel. They're not about Israel. They're about America. They're about the West. Every single one of those protesters who chants anti-Israel things, hates America, hates this country. It started with that woke ideology that views anybody who has power as inherently evil, and anybody who has, who's oppressed according to them as inherently virtuous. And what the Jewish students are being treated to right now is not necessarily anti-Semitism. They're being treated to the treatment that white students have been forced to endure since the woke movement took over universities. Israel is being treated the way that these people treat America. Now, I don't want to deny that it has a uniquely anti-Semitic flavor. Of course it does. It's amped up because it's the Jews. But at the same time, I think that we should be a little bit frustrated that when the students were doing this kind of stuff to conservative young people, to white young people on college campuses, where was the outrage over that? And I feel uniquely as a Jewish person that it's very important for us to say that. A lot of American Jews were in the progressive side when it was coming for, Americans, when it was coming for white students. And I'm personally having obviously like a very deep, reckoning about that. Why was it okay when they were physically assaulting conservative professors trying to speak on college campuses? It wasn't. But you're right that now there's a lot of liberal outrage about this, and I'm glad to see the liberal outrage about this, but it needs to extend further than just saying we need to get Jews into the DEI hierarchy. No, we need to get rid of the hierarchy. It's not okay to demonize Jews, and it's not okay to demonize white people. It's not okay to demonize Israel, and it's not okay to demonize America. The opposite. Everything that makes Israel worthy of defending is what makes America worthy of standing up for with the utmost pride.
It's so true. I know. I mean, for years now, I've been covering what Ann Coulter, Heather McDonald, Charles Murray have been going through. Not to mention Ben Shapiro. You could go beyond. Those are true intellectual thought leaders and have been for a long time. What they go through when they try to speak on a college campus. And look. Does Ann Coulter need to go to speak to a college campus? She does not. She makes millions of dollars off of her very successful books, her Substack and so on. She does it because she wants to spread the good word and she'd like to spark debate and get a conversation going. she doesn't need to be shouted down. Like, well, she doesn't have to put herself through this. Heather McDonald, I mean, truly, I can't, like, we're so lucky to have this woman. She's an intellectual gift to us all. She says the unsayable, the uncomfortable truths that make us squirm in our seats, but that we must reckon with if we want to better our country. And what do? They just call her names. They shout her down. They protest her. In some cases, they endanger her. You know, we saw the the Third Circuit Court of Appeals justice try to speak at Stanford, right? Like on and on and on. And let's face it, you're right. These Jewish students and their supporters who are on the progressive left did not speak up for them. They did not speak up for them. And that is a problem. I mean, I think there are some conservatives who are feeling a little irritated by that. And they're hoping that they've now learned that, you know, if one person gets shut down, eventually it'll come for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at the protesters and then, you know, these frat boys who showed up to defend the flag and to defend the Israeli flag at the same time. I mean, it's very clear where the values are and where that connection is. And I think for a long time, if you went to college, you know, you got inculcated into this woke mindset. It was very much a Democrat producing machine, which is, of course, why, you know, Democratic administrations for decades now have been trying to get everybody to go to college and basically devaluing the working class. You know, but if you went to college, you got this view that the other side is evil and does not deserve to be heard, that their views are dangerous. And honestly, Heather McDonald is dangerous to rule by Democrats because she has the data to back it up, that a lot of their platform, or at least the sort of moral indignation they bring to their platform, is absolute nonsense. So she has to be silenced. And I think it's extremely important that we don't take the lesson from this that, you know, Jewish students are unsafe on campus. Honestly, most of the people protesting on campus are, you know, of the type of the Khamenei James, right? I mean, these are not people who are a physical threat to anybody. Let's just be clear here, right? And if we adopt as a Jewish community the safetyism that led us here, we have not actually fixed the problem. The problem is that, you know, ideas themselves are not dangerous. Speech is not dangerous. What has to be punished is things like vandalism, things like taking janitors hostage, you know, things like not allowing your fellow students to study in peace. But let us not descend into this sort of safetyist narrative, because that's how we got here in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I understand why, for example, the Jewish student at UCLA the other day, the good-looking guy with the curly hair, was not allowed to enter, and he didn't enter. He just filmed it because that clip was worth far more in this battle than him just brushing past them and forcing his way through their pathetic little line would have been. He was trying to expose them, and he did it very cleverly just by filming what they did. He was obviously strong enough to bust through this pathetic little line. By the way, that same kid spoke out about the whole thing yesterday. Here's a little bit more from, forgive me, I don't have his name, but we all saw him in that clip yesterday when he was prohibited from entering SOT 9.
Over the last couple of weeks, we have witnessed pro-Hamas protesters setting up encampments all over the country. While they cower behind their masks and hide who they are, we stand tall and proudly and voice our message to the world. Israel is not going anywhere. The Jewish people are not going anywhere.
So, Batya, do you think, like, I've got to be honest, I've kind of been missing that in this whole dust-up. I want to see more, like, Jewish Americans are incredibly successful as a rule, not everybody, but you know, that this is one of the resentments toward them. But as a rule, they've been incredibly successful, and they're very hardworking, and they're family oriented, and they're fighters, and they've had hundreds of years of oppression and targeting. So I want to see more of that, right? Like, I appreciate the peaceful singing and all that, but like, I also want to see some fight, some rhetorical fight, some humiliation of the other side. Are we now finally at the point where, you know, we're going to get more of that, do you think?
I think we may. You know, the Jewish students that I've been talking to have been saying to me, like, we're actually here like to learn things, like unlike many of these like protesters who are there to learn how to become protesters, right? That is what they are going to become. They're going to become, the leaders of unions, or like they're going to go into the sort of NGO, George Soros funded, democratic revolving door, right? Where their job is to agitate. And in fact, a lot of the students wrote about agitating in high school in their college application essays in order to get into Colombia in the first place, right? So there's this irony here where they have been doing this to the opprobrium and applause of the progressive adults around them their whole lives. I think they're probably very surprised to see this negative impact now. But the Jewish students are there like to get their degree. They're like, trying to become lawyers, trying to become physicists, trying to become chemists, right? And so the idea that like that they would now sacrifice their education in order to do this, I think, the idea that they would have to do that has come as a bit of a surprise. And really, they're much more focused on the academics. I will say, I do think that this class divide here, where being a good student gets you entree into one of these universities where you can then become a kind of professional protester, and then from there succeed upward, fail upward into the democratic leadership a la AOC or what have you, right?
Yes, exactly right.
This is a real pathway, and it is infuriating, not only because of the bad behavior of these students in their like kafia midriffs and so forth, but because the pathway to the American dream really does go through those Colombia protests. And it's so much harder for good, hardworking Americans who don't go to university and don't get brainwashed to achieve the American dream. And that is an absolute outrage that it is both the locus of this totally amoral, anti-Semitic, pro-terrorist ideology, but also that this is one of the surest ways to secure the American dream. And if you choose not to do that because you love this country and you love your Jewish neighbors, you're going to struggle. I'm very bothered by that, Megyn.
The name of the student my team forwards me is Eli. The last name is spelled T-S-I-V-E-S. So Civis, Eli Civis. Good for him for speaking out. And I'm very proud of him and the way he behaved, especially because UCLA has been just a mess. It's been an absolute mess. We received this from a source out there. This is a mom calling UCLA police because her child was trying to access his or her, I don't remember if it was a girl or a guy, campus, and it was a boy. So take a listen to how this went in SOT 7.
So are the protesters allowed to not allow a student who pays tuition access to their class in the library?
No, they're not allowed, but unfortunately they have kind of taken over that little area right there. But unfortunately the police are not intervening with that right now. And this is coming from the university. We've received a directive to not intervene at this time.
At what point does UCPD get involved? Because if my child's safety...
So if your son needs police assistance, and of course he can contact us.
So I'm calling and saying he needs police assistance to get into his class, that people aren't letting him into his class.
We're not forcing them to move out of the area. That's what... If he needs, like if he's getting attacked or he has a police concern, then yes. But the fact that it's just locked off, they're not intervening with that right now.
Yeah, we're aware that they weren't, and that we reached out to the police department out there in California, the LAPD. They didn't respond to us, but we were told that they were given UCLA, I should say. We were told that they were given a stand down order, that they were told not to intervene, and there you hear for yourself. They were told, don't help them. And that's why we had situations. Here's one more soundbite for you in SOT 8. That's why we had situations like this where a UCLA Jewish student was refused access. Here it is.
You don't have a wristband.
Why do I need a wristband?
It's time to go.
I can stand here if I want. I'm not moving.
He's cornered.
Okay, they're now cornering me.
They're wearing masks. They're wearing yellow
I'm not
construction
moving.
vests.
You guys want to prevent Jewish students from entering? Fine.
Now we got a couple Jewish students. Are you Zionist?
Yeah, of course I'm
Are
Zionist.
you a Zionist? Yes.
Okay, so you don't let Zionists in the library that I pay tuition?
So infuriating. I am amazed that there has not been an outbreak of all-out fist fighting and true violence between these Jewish students and these protesters. I mean, you really want to see a beatdown, but you don't. But there's a piece of you that's just so enraged, you'd like to see somebody get it right in the face.
What's so amazing to me, Megyn, is in clip after clip after clip, you see the look on the faces of the protesters. You can't see their faces because they wear masks, but like the zombified look in their eyes. Have you noticed that? Like the just like blank stare as they follow orders, thinking that they are like uniquely, brilliant and virtuous, and everybody else is wrong and evil as they blindly follow orders that they obviously like don't have any understanding of. It's amazing to me. And that to me is really bone chilling more than even violence is that like blank stare that the protesters have that you get when a mob forms and people are just following mob orders. The good news I think is that because UCLA is a public university, all of these students will now have a lawsuit case against the state of California, not just the university itself, in a way that they wouldn't on a private campus, I think. But what I've been hearing from Jewish students is that, see, this is the problem is, they will show up and protest on their own. They will set up their own tables. They will hold their flags. They will chalk on the ground, just like the pro-Palestinian protesters. But there's a double standard in how the university treats them, because the university is not afraid of the Jewish students and the university is afraid of the Palestinian protesters, because they see them being backed by all of this, organization, by the AOC types, by all of this funding, by the NGOs. They're not quite sure that they will not have a much bigger PR crisis if they take on the pro-Palestinian students. And so there's this double standard where they'll hold the Jewish students to the letter of the law, but they will allow the pro-Palestinian students to get away with things that they would not otherwise. And that is true discrimination, and it's troublesome.
It's like, to me, it's so emblematic of what we've seen time and time again. His belief, so he's being banned here, allegedly, because he believes that Israel has a right to exist. So he can't come into the campus for which his parents or he have paid. It's the same to me in some ways as what we've seen from the left when it comes to Trump supporters. They're so vile, they have to be kept out. We can't hear their views. Everyone related to Trump can't have a job, can't get on an airplane, can't publish a book after January 6th. They all must be shunned, excommunicated from polite society. And I'm not talking about the ones who hit cops. Those guys can rot in jail. I hope they do. I have zero sympathy for them. They're not hostages. They deserve to be punished to the maximum extent of the law. However, there is a whole host of folks who participated in January 6th as like just protesters who thought they were there to like root on Trump and didn't go into the Capitol, who have been treated the same as the ones who punched the cops. And all of them have just, and I take it beyond J6ers because they're controversial, but just Trump, right? Like, you're not allowed in. You have the wrong belief set. And I think conservatives from coast to coast have been feeling this for a long time. You don't believe the right things. Like Black people remain uniquely oppressed. Like men can become actual women. It's not just a lie. We're actually looking at a true woman here, and so on, right? So just that scene is triggering.
Definitely. And I would take it even one step further and say the reason Trump and his supporters have to be silenced is not because they have the wrong views, but because they have the right views, because Trump actually agrees with where the vast majority of Americans are at on many, many issues, whether it's abortion, whether it's, policing, whether it's unions, whether it's tariffs and trade, whether it's immigration and the economy. Trump's views reflect 70% of Americans, certainly the vast majority of the working class and the middle class. And because of that, the left has to amp up that he's a unique threat in this way, a unique threat in that way. Oh, did you hear what he said on this day? Did you hear he's going to be a dictator on that day? Because they're terrified that when the American people realize what he actually believes, they're going to abandon the Democrats in droves, which is what we're seeing happen right now. And I would would argue, Megyn, the same thing is happening with the pro-Palestinian protesters. They are not out there protesting on behalf of the children of Gaza, because if they were, they would be doing what Dr. King did, which is appeal to the common humanity of the average American, who is a good-hearted person who only wants everybody to have safety and security for themselves and their children. Instead, what they do is they chant these extremist slogans straight out of Hamas's charter, you know, intifada, intifada, from the river to the sea, straight from Hamas's charter, because, Megyn, they don't want to convince people of their cause. They want to alienate people of their cause. They want to shrink the number of people who defend the Palestinians so that they can feel the virtuous ones, and the average American, the middle class person with their good values, they can sneer at them. That's why they block traffic. That's why they get in the way of Christmas carols and proceeds, because what they want is effectively to narrow the amount of people who agree with them so they can lord it over them. They are not trying to convince people. They're doing the opposite.
Their sneering sense of entitlement. It's actually been really fun to watch them. They get mad when they get arrested. They get very mad because, unlike the civil disobedient folks of the past who understood part of being disobedient to our laws would mean there'd be a punishment, and they were willing to take it to make a point. I mean, you know, love them or hate them, respect, right? You understand? Like, I'm not a big Jane Fonda fan, but she takes the arrests when she goes out there on her wacky environmental agenda stuff time and time again. You know, she takes the arrest. She knows that's part of the bargain. These people don't want it. They don't want the benefit of the bargain. They only want the upside, and then they want to play the victim if they're faced with the downside. But the one thing that has made them move from campus to campus, whether it was Princeton or last night Yale, was you're going to be expelled. Oh, they move their asses so quickly. Oh, I'm out of here. What? Huh? Because they can't lose their credential. I mean, maybe we could tolerate a mugshot. I could explain that to my future academic professors who want to hire me. But expulsion? Lose my Colombia degree? Oh, heavens to Betsy. And so it's amazing. It's amazing to see that happen. Right now it's happening at UCLA. As I said, they sent the cops in there, and now they've canceled, we just got word, classes at UCLA for the rest of the semester. They're done because they're worried the rebel rousers will come back and start it up again. And you know, they can't keep order. I mean, it's just complete chaos. Let me ask you this. How do you think this plays out, if at all, in our presidential election? You know, Biden's issued a couple of mealy-mouthed statements. Like, they're not bad statements, but he doesn't say them. He just issues a paper statement. You can tell his heart's not really in it, or if it is, they're silencing him because they're worried about Michigan. So what do you think? Now, here we are, 6 months out? How does this play in November?
I think that this cannot be separated from a larger obsession with the youth vote, and as a result, youth culture, this like worship of young people that you see on the left, that's like really appalling. You know, anytime you turn on cable news, now if you're watching CNN or MSNBC, they're sitting there being like, well, we should probably understand how the young people think, right? Because they think that that is their future success right there. But what's amazing is that young people are defecting from Biden to the more pro-Israel candidate, right? Trump is actually outperforming Biden now, I believe, with young voters. And it's a direct result of policy. This morning, President Biden announced that there's going to be even more billions of dollars spent on student loan forgiveness.
6.1 billion. Sorry, I interrupted you on student loan forgiveness. Keep going.
And it's amazing because all of these people are out there being like, how could he have done this the morning after we all watched these college students behaving so badly from the lap of luxury, like people who have been denied nothing, who have been given every opportunity, who literally have oppression envy, right? That's what we're watching.
Yes.
They're standing there.
Oh, I
in
love that term.
Right? They're envious of the Gazans for their suffering. And so they are LARPing as the oppressed, demanding humanitarian. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? We can make fun of them till the cows come home. But more important than these ridiculous people is the administration, the Biden administration, and decades of Democrats who have encouraged this oppression envy, whether it's of Palestinians or of the civil rights struggle, the noble civil rights struggle. We have inculcated this woke mind view as an alibi to hide the upward transfer of wealth from hardworking class Americans into the pockets of these LARPers, right? I mean, $6.1 billion in student loan forgiveness. Biden looked at last night, he looked at these privileged students holding janitors hostage, and he said, I'm going to side with them and put money back in their pockets. I'm going to make that janitor pay off their student loans. To me, this is going to have a big impact on 2024, because how can you not feel the injustice of that, of the fact that the Democrats' entire economic agenda is a plunder of the middle class and upward transfer of wealth from janitors to LARPers who pay $90,000 a year to walk around in midriff keffiyehs.
And denying entry to their fellow students who don't have the right viewpoints. What do you think they're going to do to you conservatives when they get in charge at places like Colombia and your kid or you try to get in and say something different there? I'll end this particular segment before we go to break with some good news. It didn't just happen at UNC Chapel Hill, which is the South, and in my experience tends to be very patriotic, sadly more so than some other places Northeast. New York City is still a patriotic place. Not all the lefties, but it still is. And the NYPD got to City College, where they were having similar nonsense happen. And when they did, look at the boys in blue, take down the Palestinian flag and replaced it with an American flag right there. Way to go, guys. By the way, for those listening at home, black, white, didn't matter. They love America. They restored our flag to its rightful place. So leave it on that. Quick break, more, and we've got to get to, I missed it yesterday. I mean, we saw it was there, but we didn't get to it. The longer segment of Kamala Harris on with Drew Barrymore. It must be seen to be believed. Don't go away. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and over 2 million happy customers? And now you can grow lemon, how about that? An avocado tree, olive or fig trees. They have houseplants for you too. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to order online and ship directly to your door in 1 to 2 days. You can even speak with their specialists for a free consultation. You can find the perfect fit for your specific climate, location, and needs. Whether you're looking to add some privacy, shade, or natural beauty to your yard, Fast Growing Trees is ready to help you make the right selection from their nursery. Right now, they have some of the best deals online, like up to half off on select plants and more. Viewers get an additional 15% off when they use the code Megyn at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code MEGYN at checkout. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com, code Megyn. This offer won't last forever. Tell them Megyn sent you. Kamala Harris. That's like deep breathing. She went on the Drew Barrymore show. And on Monday, they released a promo clip, which we played for our audience, in which it was just affectation after affectation with Drew. You know, for the visual audience, I'm going to do an imitation where my microphone is Kamala and I'm Drew. Oh, really? Oh, I mean, uncomfortably close. Like, as close as you need to be to a microphone. That's how close Drew was to Kamala. And I felt for Kamala Harris. I did. I felt bad for her. You could tell she had embarrassment. I had secondhand embarrassment. And you could tell it was too awkward of an invasion of her personal space. But this was Drew's attempt to show, I'm Oprah. Trust me, I'm Oprah. I get it. No. For Oprah Winfrey, it came naturally. And she didn't have to force a fake, feigned intimacy. That's why she became Oprah, okay? That's why back in her day, she was very special and one of a kind. You're not Oprah, Drew. And your segment with Kamala Harris proved it. So Kamala Harris, on the other end, is accepting this adoration as though it's real and as though Drew Barrymore speaks for us all. For she speaks for all American women, right? Like Kamala is our leader, the feminine hero that we need, feminist. First of all, for the first time in the Drew Barrymore television show history, they stocked the audience with all women. Here's a look at that. SOT 13.
Welcome to the show. Our guest
Oh my God, look at her.
needs no introduction. She is the first Black, first South Asian, and yes, first female Vice President of the United States. Please welcome Vice President Kamala Harris. I stand, but I'm already standing up. We have all women here today in the audience. Thank you, ladies.
I just threw up a little in my mouth. I don't know. Okay, let's just stop there. Batya, the over-the-top behavior of Drew Barrymore, who everyone used to like. She was cute when she was young and she was in these movies. And now this, truly, it's performance. It's bad acting. That's what we're seeing. In response to, I mean, you would have thought Jesus had just walked in. The way she treat, no one feels like this about her. Who does she think she's kidding?
It was a pantomime of, positive feelings. And even for Drew Barrymore, it was extremely overdone. And when I watched that, I couldn't help but think, like, this is what happens when you're extremely, extremely wealthy. What does politics even mean to you anymore when all of your needs are being met to excess? Like when you're a millionaire or a billionaire, what does politics even mean? You don't need anything from politicians. You don't need anything from this country. And yet somehow our elites in Hollywood still have this need to see themselves as on the right side of history. And so instead of doing an honest take, looking around the country and being like, hey, people really need things. I wonder what kind of policies we should be putting in place to help people with 18% groceries inflated, right? Instead, they do this pantomime of politics around identity because then they don't have to talk about the real issues. And that's really what we were seeing there is extremely wealthy people pretending they're on the right side of history.
And can you imagine how embarrassed you'd be if your introduction included something about your color? Like your race? What the fuck are you bringing up her skin color for? You're so fucking weird. I'm sorry, but in defense of Kamala Harris, you couldn't find one thing she did as vice president. I might not have liked what you might cite, but I'm sure the left, you could find something. I don't know. She went down to Tennessee after those 3 pro-abortion people, threw a fit. Something. She's the first to go to Planned Parenthood as a sitting vice president. Something that the left would. Her skin color is brown. I mean, that's really what she was saying. How offensive. But you're right. That's what they worship there. It's not like Jesus, because that's not who she worships. She worships skin color, which was on display. So then comes the following. Kamala offers the following little ditty about her name and what her stepchildren call her. Listen here.
We kind of don't use the term step. Because I just think, I love Disney. However, Disney kind of messed that up for a lot of us over the years. The evil step-parent. And their word for me is Momala. And so they call me Momala.
All right. That's fine. I actually think that's kind of cute. It's kind of clever. I fine. Here's the follow-up by Drew Barrymore.
I keep thinking in my head that we all need a mom. I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now.
Yeah.
But in our country, we need you to be Momala of the country. And as a woman who respects so much and wants to share and wants to be confident and has no ounce of me that has competitiveness.
Yeah.
When we lift each other up, we all rise.
That's exactly right.
Oh my God.
That's right. That's right.
However, we need a great protector.
Oh my God. She wants us to believe that great protector who we apparently all need and desperately want is Kamala Harris. Just once again, another word on the fake behavior, the affectation of Drew Barrymore too close. She's right on top of her, like she's her microphone. You can see she's on top of her. Get out of my personal space. And then again with I can't really do it because my Botox is too intact. I'll try to push my eyebrows. It's like that. With her eyebrows, like, oh. We're just hurting. You know why we're hurting? Because of her policies, which are outlined in your book, by the way, Second Class. So what did you make of it?
No, totally. America doesn't need a hug. We need a secure border. We need inflation to come down. We need like better affordable health care. We need to get rid of the diploma divide. We need to restore dignity to the working class. We need vocational training. We do not need a hug. And you see here a real difference in like working class culture, conservative culture, and then liberal elite culture. Working class people really value autonomy. They don't need their politicians to tell them what to believe. They don't need their politicians to share their values or tell them how to feel about things. They just need them to enact policy that enables them to keep more of their paycheck and buy a home. Like, that's all they need. Liberals, on the other hand, they are super into politics as a kind of spirituality. And so they need their politicians to have some sort of like spiritual, psychological, like to tell them what to think and how to feel about things, because all of their material needs are being met. Because again, they're wealthy. I mean, 9 of the 10 richest counties vote for Democrats. Like 65% of Americans who make more than $500,000 a year, Democrats. Wall Street gave more money to Joe Biden than to Trump, right? There's been this realignment. And rich people, they look to these politicians not for policy, which they don't need, but for some sort of spiritual guidance, because they have no sort of internal sense of right versus wrong anymore. Thank you, universities. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a woman in Drew Barrymore trying to create some sort of idol out of this empty shell, which is Kamala Harris, who represents only being female and being Black and being Southeast Asian, right? That she has no policy. She is simply this empty husk of identities, because the Democrats went all in on this to distract from their plunder of the middle class. That's what we were seeing there.
Oh, and if the nation needed a hug, it never in its right mind would it go to Kamala Harris. Like, there's nothing. That's why it failed so brilliantly, like so miserably, I guess is the word, because it was untrue. If there had been even a nugget of truth in it, maybe it could have landed, but it didn't, because that's not who you would go to for a hug. There's nothing warm and fuzzy and comforting about Kamala Harris. Even the left would back me up on this. So it was just Drew Barrymore being completely obsequious, because I guess she was so thrilled she got a sitting vice president on her show. It was an embarrassment. It was almost as bad as her Dylan Mulvaney embarrassment. Her inability to control her over-emotionality is really a problem for her. And it's a real turnoff to somebody like me. By the way, most of us who have had good mothers, and I realize Drew Barrymore may not be on that list because she had the stage mother who pushed her and she was doing drugs at a very young age and all the stuff that she's come out with. You know what a good mother does? A good mother doesn't look at you and say, you're on your own. I mean, you can't do it. You need me to step in and be your Momala who handles these problems for you. A good mom says, you got this, kid. Life's tough, but so are you. You're good. And that's not what Drew Barrymore needs or was asking for. She's used to a lifetime of coddling and somebody else doing it. Here's another thing I wanted to say. This reminded me of the following, your comments. Reese Witherspoon, after Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted, guarantee you this woman did not watch 1 minute of that trial. No one should be able to purchase a semi-automatic weapon, cross state lines, and kill 2 people, wound another, and go free. In what world is this safe for any of us? Reese Witherspoon, with undoubtedly her security guards in her mansions and her gates, yet another elite, rich woman who has no clue why someone might actually buy a semi-automatic weapon and feel the need to protect others.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to keep pushing home this, the Democrats used to represent labor, and they abandoned them to cater to the college-educated elite, the educated rich, the cultural elites in Hollywood, and the dependent poor. So, when you look at every policy pushed by the Democrats, it's either appealing to the top 20%, who now control, by the way, over 50% of the GDP, thanks to the Democrats, or to the dependent poor on the bottom, which means that 70% of Americans who want that autonomy, who want the dignity of labor, are being left out in the cold because all of the culture is being produced by Drew Barrymore on her knees, elevating Kamala Harris, who can only hurt the working class with her Democratic policies.
It's amazing. It really, truly is amazing to watch these women in their cluelessness about what America actually needs, wants, and also who's to blame. Like, Drew Barrymore has no idea. She's probably, I bet she doesn't know like how much a carton of milk costs. She probably doesn't. She probably has somebody else do all her shopping. And that's why she just wants to cheer on this woman like she's a second coming, because she's got the right skin color and she's got a vagina. And those are the things she mentioned in her big intro. It's offensive. All right, Batya stays with us. Much more to get to, including what happened yesterday at the farce of a Trump trial. Don't go away. Can your savings weather an economic storm? Think about what you've put away for the future. Inflation can render cash worthless. Real estate can crash like it did in 2008. Economies built on a mountain of debt can fall like a house of cards. There are very few physical assets you can invest in that can stand the test of time, but gold is one of them. It's why many people are flocking to it now, and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part? It doesn't cost you 1 penny out of pocket. To learn more, text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit on gold. Again, can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, consider looking into Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and explore securing your savings today. There's something called debt traps. And that debt trap you might be caught in is not your fault. Did you cause inflation? Did you set gas prices or make credit card companies jack up interest rates? The thing is, that debt trap can destroy your life if you don't get out of it now. And that's why I want to tell you about Done with Debt. Done with Debt has debt relief strategists who can stand between you and your bill collectors. Then they negotiate a plan to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy and without taking out loans. But listen, some of these strategies are time sensitive. So contact Done with Debt and see if they can help you with a free consultation. Share what you're dealing with, and they could explain a strategy to erase your debt faster and easier than you ever thought possible. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Donewithdebt.com. So, Batya, the Trump trial is not in session today because it's Wednesday. So Trump is given 1 day during the work week to actually campaign for president. The rest of the days he has to spend time in court, where we're getting scintillating reports about his behavior, including this one. Take a listen to SOT 16.
Your observations on Donald Trump today.
Sleeping. Again, they have tried a number of different devices. Yeah, sleeping for a lot of it. I would say they've tried a number of different devices to keep Trump awake, partially in response, or what appears to be in response to collective press corps observations. So, for example, when there are sidebars, an attorney doesn't leave his side anymore because leaving him alone means leaving him to potentially sleep. He has a stack of papers with him at all times now to go through. But neither of those things seem to have protected Trump from his own exhaustion today. More than not, when I looked up to see how Trump was receiving the testimony, Trump was not receiving it at all because his eyes were closed.
I want to make a differential. Yeah. We don't know if he's sleeping. His eyes are sometimes closed. It could be because he's trying not to react.
Oh, wait, what? The entire narrative could be wrong? What? Just slip that in there at the end. They're obsessed. There's huge close-ups. And yesterday there was a report about, or 2 days ago, whether he was passing gas in the courtroom, and now it's on to his alleged sleeping, or maybe not at all. Either all the time or never. That's our report, MSNBC.
Megyn, you made an amazing point a few weeks ago that Trump is like a supervillain in a superhero movie where the more you throw at him, like the bigger he gets and the stronger he gets. And he has a genius for having made the right enemies. You know, if you make the right enemies in life, you don't actually have to be that smart because they will tell you what the truth is by being the opposite of it. And in a way, I really feel that Trump understood where the danger lies, who the completely, totally empty, banal elites telling everybody what they should think and believe. He understood that they were the enemy. And so he kind of positioned himself on the other side of it. And with every step, with every day, with every report, they just reveal the emptiness of what they are. I mean, can you imagine being this obsessed with somebody about whether he's asleep or whether he's not asleep, whether he's passing gas, every micro expression
that you would
part
report
of
it.
this. It's so ridiculous. And the other point I would make is that I think conservatives tend to see all of these attacks on Trump and think of them as a kind of coordinated effort on behalf of the Democratic Party. But the truth is actually a lot more banal and a lot more disturbing. There's no real coordination. It's just that every single one of these people, every single one of these, DAs and people in charge and politicians and members of the media have main character syndrome. They think that they are responsible personally for keeping this person, the most popular politician in America, out of office. And so they are each doing the same thing in lockstep, like those zombified students on college campuses, but without realizing that they're actually obeying a much larger diktat from the elites to make sure that the working class does not get their chosen politician in office.
You'd really think after Russiagate, it would have occurred to them how they'd been used, how they were being used. But they don't care because they were also in service of the same mission. It's like, fine, if you had told me explicitly I was being fed misinformation, I would have done the same thing because we all had the same goal to get Trump. There is some coordination. There was a report just this week, by the way, that Andrew Weissman, this former FBI lawyer, and Jeffrey Toobin, everyone knows what he's famous for, and maybe another, was it George Conway? Can't remember who the third lawyer was. Lawrence Tribe, Bill Kristol are having weekly meetings about the Trump trial to get their talking points straight. I mean, this is unbelievable. Like Toobin, with all his troubles, is supposed to be a straight news legal analyst for CNN. And Weissman, same for MSNBC. Conway and Kristol are partisans, so they can do what they want and say what they want. But that is pretty gross. You're not supposed to get together and come up with your talking points. Where, by the way, is the, Trump supporter in their little group? What have they done to make sure that the analysis they're about to feed? Remember, CNN is supposed to be the new middle CNN? It's gone back to its objectivity. Really? Where's George Conway? Used to be a Republican, but he hates Trump more than anybody alive. Anyway, it's just one example of how in some instances there actually is coordination, but I agree with you in general. So the Trump trial goes on. They're obsessed over his behaviors. By the way, the reason Trump was closing his eyes, more likely than not, is yesterday was incredibly boring. They had a guy up from C-SPAN for hours trying to lay the foundation on how C-SPAN takes in videos, because they needed C-SPAN videos to come in at some point in this trial. Who the hell wouldn't you sleep through the real C-SPAN? Never mind the guy talking about C-SPAN. So it's ridiculous. I guarantee you Trump won't be asleep when Michael Cohen's on the stand or Stormy Daniel. Now, in conjunction with all that, Time magazine decides to do an in-depth piece on Donald Trump. He's on the cover, sitting, looking somewhat foreboding. It's in black and white, and it reads, "If he wins, if he wins." It's like the OJ, "if I did it." And this is Time magazine's shot at what a second Trump term would look like. They did get 2 interviews with Trump because even though he knows the media hates him, he continues to give them interviews, even the ones he knows won't be fair. And they also had conversations, they say, with his closest advisors. It was conducted at Mar-a-Lago on April 12th and phone conversations on April 27th, so it's recent. The opening line reads, "Donald Trump thinks he's identified a crucial mistake of his first term. he was too nice. What they're actually referring to is a reference he made to his former top advisors, who he now says, I was too nice. I don't want to embarrass people, so I let them quit. In my second term, I think I would fire. I'll fire more. So, okay, take that for what it's worth. But it goes on to talk about things that I think will have some Republicans running to the polls. He'll reinstall many of the same policies from his first term when it comes to immigration. Remain in Mexico, directing federal funding to resume construction of the border wall, relying on the National Guard to round people up and deport undocumented immigrants. As soon as he takes office, a border security and immigration package and extension of his 2017 tax cuts. This is going to have the right marching through all sorts of weather to vote for the guy. But the left had a different kind of reaction to some other parts of the article. For example, on law, he says he might fire U.S. attorneys who refuse his orders to prosecute someone. By the way, the political U.S. attorneys get fired as soon as the new president comes in. That's an Obama thing. On his enemies, would he prosecute Fani Willis or Alvin Bragg? He demurs but offers no promises. No, I don't want to do that. But we're going to look at a lot of things. What they've done is a terrible thing. On going after Biden, I wouldn't want to hurt Biden. I have too much respect for the office. But also says that if the Supreme Court says a president does not get immunity, Biden, I am sure, will be prosecuted for all of his crimes. Time notes Biden has not been charged with any, right? Hasn't been charged with any, but he's committed some. That's what the special counsel found. He just wasn't charged because he was a well-meaning elderly man. So he could still get charged. Anyway, let me give you a sampling of some of the left-wing freakout in response to this piece.
I read this big-time interview this morning, and it's Trump in his own words saying these scary things. There won't be guardrails next time. So he's admitting he's going to staff a White House and the entire federal government with either liars or lunatics.
If he is elected to serve a second term as president, he plans out loud to drag our country into a dark new era, a place we've never been before, more closely resembling authoritarianism.
You either vote and you vote for the country you grew up in and try to fix that, or you go to dictatorship.
And it almost felt like a call to arms to his supporters. Yeah. Like, stand back, stand by.
This is how Hitler talked before he seized power. It is how Mao talked. It is how Mussolini talked. Stop him now, while we still can.
Okay. I wouldn't want to hurt Biden. I have too much respect for the office. But if Supreme Court says the president doesn't have immunity, Biden, I'm sure, will be prosecuted for his crimes. This is how Mao talked. What?
Yes, Hitler, famous for saying he would never go after a political opponent, but is sure that the justice system will be, just and take due course, right? Like Hitler's famous crime. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Megyn, there was a poll a couple weeks ago that found that 42% of Democrats support rounding up illegal immigrants and deporting them. 42% of Democrats. And this reveals what is going on here. The liberal media thinks that if you are not totally woke, totally radical left, you are a fascist and don't have a right to vote. And that includes their own voters. It includes the views of the average Democrat. There is so much contempt and loathing for average Americans just trying to get along. And honestly, Megyn, I was listening to these quotes from Trump when he said he wouldn't go after Fani Willis. I was like, oh, wow, I wouldn't have expected him to say he wouldn't do that.
We're like, why not?
It's like very reasonable, and it's so amazing, the projection. I mean, as if they are not currently weaponizing the justice system to go after their political opponent because he is so popular. Even as they know they are doing that, they talk about ushering in a dark new age that they have already implemented. They have so much contempt for their viewers and so much contempt for the average American. It's dripping off of everything they say and everything they do.
Yes, gosh, yes, well said. So we pulled separately Andrew Weissman, who we mentioned is doing the weekly call reportedly with these other lawyers to getting their messaging together. And he's one of the biggest Trump critics. And he had the following warning. We hear this from the Democrats a lot in the lead up to a presidential election. I happen to believe that the Andrew Weissmans of the world actually believe what you're about to hear this time. Listen.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of democracy as we know it. That is what is so shocking, is how close we are, and we are really on the razor's edge of that kind of result.
One vote away from the end of democracy as we know it. That's what's at stake. They were discussing the Supreme Court's immunity hearing and, the potential, that the Supreme Court may actually find that the president does have some immunity for acts while in office. But in any event, the over-dramatization, this is what they try to do, right? It's like your life as you know it, this country as you know it, will never be the same if you put this maniac in. Meanwhile, they already had him in for 4 years. And you know what the polls say most people think? They're lying.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so ridiculous because when you think about the way that they talk about democracy, they have redefined the word democracy to mean when we win, and redefined the word fascism to mean when we lose. It doesn't actually have any meaning anymore. If you said to them, wouldn't taking, a former president off the ballot maybe be a threat to democracy? No, they literally cannot see it because in their minds, the word democracy means we win. And we know what they do when they win. What they do when they win is upward transfer of wealth from the working class to the rich elites. And that is what makes this all the more horrifying. Whether it's accusations of racism or accusations of threat to democracy, what they are effectively saying is, if you working class Americans don't support our plunder of the middle class for the rich elites, you don't deserve to have a vote. You are a racist. You are a threat to this country, when the truth is the exact opposite. It is such a genius, evil play to disguise what's truly happening here.
Yeah, they're worried about themselves. That's what they show over and over. You wrote this whole book about working class Americans because you care about them and you'd like to shed a light on what they're actually going through. This is the reason, by the way, J.D. Vance is now a U.S. senator and on the short list, reportedly, for Trump's vice president. I mean, it was, I think, 5-6 years ago, I was interviewing this guy. He didn't have a job. He had just left Peter Thiel in San Francisco. He had graduated from Yale Law School. And he was back in Ohio trying to figure out his next move. Now he's on the short list for vice president of the United States. It could possibly happen. Why? Because he too is paying attention, not to what J.D. Vance needs, but to what working class America needs and telling the truth about their struggles. It's a very different thing over at MSNBC, where I will bring you Nicole Wallace's chief concern about a second Trump term. Watch this.
Because depending on what happens in November, 7 months from right now, this time next year, I might not be sitting here. There might not be a White House Correspondents' Dinner or a free press. While our democracy wouldn't exactly fall apart immediately without it, the real threat looms larger. A candidate with outward disdain, not just for a free press, but for all of our freedoms and for the rule of law itself.
Back to me and my multi-million-dollar job, and also my appearances at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Did you hear that, Megyn? Without the White House Correspondents' Dinner, we will have no democracy. It's so funny. But again, what is that dinner? It's the hobnobbing of the political elites with the media elites, with the Hollywood elites, right? All of these liberals and leftists who sit there and get high on this fantasy that they are the good guys and they are the virtuous against an evil, racist middle America, when the truth is the opposite. They have used this myth of racism in order to plunder the middle class and give themselves all of the rewards, this upward transfer of wealth from hard-working Americans into the pockets of the already rich.
I like the plunder word. It's working. Oppression envy was also a good one. All right, before we go, I want to get to, I played this in part yesterday, but we cut a longer bite for today. And here's what happened. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona went on Capitol Hill the other day to testify about some of the craziness we're watching, and Title IX was brought up by Senator Hyde Smith of Mississippi, and she got up in his grill. in particular on why girls and young women are no longer going to be protected from having biological males come into their dressing rooms, their bathrooms, their locker rooms, etc. That's just a dent of what the new Title IX regulations, not passed by any lawmaker, are going to do. They take effect in August. This guy doesn't get it. Watch, we cut a longer bite. Let's play the 2-minute one, you guys, and take a look at how he handled himself.
You said protecting students is number one priority for you. So I'm glad to know that you've stated that for us today. Does this rule require schools to share the information with parents regarding their children's gender status?
Whether this rule does or not, parents and schools should be working together. I have to tell you, the rule strengthens protections for students.
I don't necessarily agree with that. Do you investigate schools that socially transition children without notifying students' parents?
Depending on what the request is, I defer that to the investigators at OCR whether or not to take a case.
What does your department have to say about how this rule will impact biological females, eliminating the safe spaces for women and even pushing women out of athletics altogether?
What this Title IX rule does is ensure that all students, including our LGBTQI students, are protected.
So when a biological male goes into the locker room with biological females, you think that that is a safe space for those young girls?
When girls walk into bathrooms, that's you may not be recognizing students who are transgender, but because you don't recognize them doesn't mean that I don't protect them. I think the line of questioning is trying to create division. What we're trying to do is protect all students.
We're not trying to create division. You just said protecting students is my number one priority. But there's a difference in boys and girls and where they change clothes and undress. Do you agree with that?
Schools make rules on how to make sure students are safe and have privacy in our schools. And the Title IX rules just reinforce the work that they have to do to also protect students who are LGBTQ who have, unfortunately, historically in our country, been under attack. And we need to protect those.
No one is attacking anyone right now. We are talking about school safety and girls' locker rooms and bathrooms. So you don't need to change the conversation that somebody's attacking someone. So your position is that they still have the safe spaces that they deserve when biological girls are undressing. That is your position.
It is my honor as an educator to protect students who have been marginalized. And as Secretary of Education, it is my responsibility to protect all students, not just some.
In the same breath that you say safety is number one.
Unbelievable. I'm just writing down. It's my honor to protect students who have been marginalized. And then he quickly adds, all students, not the girls. There's so much in there, Batya. The Title IX, his revisions, which none of us agreed to, strengthens the, quote, protection of students. No, it doesn't. It literally only does one thing, and that is allow trans kids into women's spaces. Everybody else gets hurt. Young men who get accused on college campus no longer have due process. Young women have to expose their body parts to biological men who have access to their spaces. Do you investigate schools that secretly trans the kids, is basically what she was asking. No. He said, it's up to the investigators. The answer is no, they definitely do not do that. That is school policy at several schools throughout New York City, throughout New York, throughout Connecticut. That's policy. Trans the kids without notifying the parents. The parents are otherized, like they're hashtag part of the problem. Do you want to keep it safe for girls? These are girls, he basically said. He said, even though you don't recognize them, meaning the boys, as girls, they are girls, and you're trying to create division. There's a natural division. There is a division between boys and girls and men and women, and we've reinforced it in particular spaces in society for a long time for very good reason. He's a traitor. He is the policy enemy of every woman and girl out there. He should be ashamed of himself. I know we're not impeaching cabinet officials anymore because it didn't go so well the last time we did it, but he's a representative of his boss. And people need to keep this in mind when they go to vote. And it's not just at the presidential level, up and down the ticket come November. Your thoughts on it?
I think you're absolutely right. And the point I would make is this is not a left-right issue. I will never forget, Megyn, listening to your show, I don't know, 2.5 years ago. I remember exactly where I was. I was walking on the beach, and you made this point. You said, I have nothing against any transgender individual. I respect every person's right as an adult to choose what they want to do with their lives. I respect their choices. I respect their freedoms. They shouldn't be discriminated against. But that has nothing to do with when we're talking about children. That has nothing to do with when we're talking about sports or bathrooms or protecting women. That view that you enunciated there is the view of the vast majority of Americans, whether they vote for Democrats or Republicans. The vast majority of Americans want transgender individuals to be protected from discrimination in the workplace, but also only 17% of Americans, just 17%, want transgender individuals to be allowed to compete against girls on girls' teams. But the entire Democratic Party is devoted to that 17%. So the question would be, right, well, then why aren't all Americans, all of these, 83% voting for Republicans? And the answer to that is extremely important, because they can't afford to put this as their number one issue. And so if Republicans want to win, if they want these voters who are now voting for Democrats but agree with them on this issue to have the ability to vote for them on this issue, it's extremely important that they start talking about class and recognize that their base is working class, and their base could be much, much bigger if they talked in class terms.
That's exactly right. Yes, because like Nicole Wallace, people do ultimately vote on what's in their own best interest. It's just the vast majority of Americans' best interest does not line up with those espoused by Nicole Wallace there. What about my multi-billion-dollar job? I might not be here. Which is, by the way, so farcical. Trump was president for 4 years, and he let you keep your shitty show. He didn't do anything to you. All right? So, stop with the catastrophizing. He would have gotten rid of you already if he wanted to, if he had the ability to, which he doesn't. So, all right, whatever. Batya, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on again.
Thank you so much, Megyn. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you too.